Hello and welcome to the Tillage Edge with me, Michael Hennessy. This is your regular update for all your tillage news and advice. The shift towards sustainability in every part of our lives has been incredible over the past few years. This, of course, is driven substantially by the environmental challenges, not just for the people in Ireland, but people globally. However, sustainability doesn't just encompass the environment, it also addresses economics and social concerns. Teagasc has been in this space for some time, and a new initiative called the Signpost Programme, which was launched this year, aims to address these challenges. The Signpost Farm has broad support and funding from the industry and works with commercial farmers to jointly implement identified science-based solutions on these farms, and crucially, to demonstrate this practice to other farmers, to act like lighthouses for change, if you will. Over the coming months, the Tillage Edge podcast will hear from a number of these crops signpost farms and other farms we're working closely with. So today I'm delighted to be joined by John Crowley, a farmer from Wexford, who is a signpost farmer and also participating in the Teagasc Joint Programme. And I'm also joined by Eoin Lyons, the Teagasc Boortmalt Joint Programme advisor, who's been working closely with John over the past few years. John and Eoin, you're very welcome to the podcast. John, I'll first come to you. John, maybe you might tell us just a little bit about your farm in terms of the areas growing, types of cultivation system, that kind of thing.
Yeah, look, I'm farming about 180 acres of combinable crops. Some winter barley, some beans, but it's predominantly spring malting barley. I just found it to be the best financially for me over the years. I'm doing most work myself, everything apart from combining, which I sold a combine a couple of years ago. It just was too difficult to get all the work done on my own. And then I also work off farm doing a small amount of contracting.
Lovely. So in terms of your cultivation system, John, is it a plough-based system you're using, or what's the kind of system you're using?
Yeah, plough-based system at the moment. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of looking into more of a non-diversion ploughing or direct drilling, but at the moment, looking between cost and my soil type and what works best in my land, the plough at the moment is still winning that race.
Okay, well, that's fair enough.
And then a heavy press after the plough. Just with this type of soil I have, it's quite stony. It just seems to be the best way to cultivate soil before sowing.
Okay, and John, are you working on all own ground, or do you have some rented ground in the system?
Actually, most of my land, or more than half my land, is leased in on a long-term lease. It's which also means I'm leasing in entitlements as well. It would have been naked land, but it's currently it's working out. I probably wouldn't mind another couple of acres, but it's at the moment it seems to be just about the right size for me.
Okay, so it's pretty stable. You're not in the land market every year kind of thing. It's a pretty stable base.
No, but pressure is mounting. On all land at the moment, I think. Pressure from, I suppose, dairy and high entitlement owners as well, I suppose, would be putting big pressure. Would be I'd be hoping that might change under the new cap, that maybe people with high entitlements wouldn't be looking for land for entitlements, as seems to be happening more and more in this area. But dairy and even other tillage farms, but it's a snatch and grab market at the moment. But I've been okay. I've had this land for about 8 years now, and so far I'm still holding my ground for the moment anyway.
Yeah, that's great, because like it always gives you a chance, I suppose, to make sure if you're in there for a longer term that ground is in good health and good status, so you can get good deals rather than jumping in and out of various different bits of ground.
Yes,
John,
exactly.
John, can I just ask you, I know you are participating for some time now in the Monitor Farms for our Teagasc Boortmalt Joint Programme, and you're still in that, but you've also signed up, if you like, for our Signpost Farm Programme as well. Why, or maybe I think listeners will be interested in, why are you putting yourself forward for these programs?
I'm just sucking for punishment, Michael. I find I do get an awful lot of advice from many sources in Teagasc in these programs. Eoin, that's here today as well, has just been fantastic, I have to say, over the years. But look, as well as that, I would consider myself on the smaller side of a medium-sized tillage farm, where, as I said earlier, more than half my land is rented in. I'm doing the work myself. I kind of think that these programs need to look at my type of farm. what I've seen over the years, I think it's changing now, but that these types of programs would have before have often gone to the large scale farm, and it might skew the figures at the end of it. While it's good to see my size plough based, as I say, on the smaller side of medium, to see a bit more reality. And for most of the farmers in my area will be kind of similar size to me, and for everyone in the area then to see what can be done on our size of farms.
Okay, well, look, you've been a great ambassador for the Teagasc Boortmalt Programme so far, and I'm sure that'll continue for the next number of years. Eoin, I just want to come to you for a second. Eoin, you're the advisor in the Teagasc Boortmalt Programme. You might just tell the listeners just a little bit around the programme and what that's trying to achieve.
Yeah, Michael. So I suppose, look, the programme is basically a collaboration between ourselves in Teagasc and Boortmalt. And really, the reason that the programme came around was that, we see that the market for malt and barley is ever increasing, but, from profit monitor results maybe coming back in from farmers, we saw that in a ranking of most profitable crops that farmers could grow, malt and barley just seemed to be slipping down a lot, and other crops were definitely more profitable. And in reality, farmers have to grow the most profitable crop they can. So our main aim for the project was to try and improve that profitability of malt and barley for Irish growers. And really, it's a lofty aim, but what we're trying to do is get malt and barley comparable financially to first winter wheat, as we have seen that first winter wheat will leave the most money for our growers. So look, as part of the programme, we have a number of aims, but just to give you a flavour of the main ones, I suppose, as I said, look, financially, we're trying to make it the most profitable. And then to achieve that, we've set up and kind of established a targeted knowledge transfer programme that's aimed at malt and barley. And that wasn't really there before, there was no specific programme that just focused on malt and barley. So that's what we aim to achieve as part of the programme. And we also looked at improving nutrient management planning for malt and barley growers, because we all know that nitrogen rate has such an impact on achieving the protein spec for malt and barley. So we really wanted to look in depth at getting the nutrient status of our malt and barley soils correct. And then finally, we had a series of monitor farms, which John is part of, and they're there to complete sort of topical malt and barley demos or trials for us, and also be part of our knowledge transfer program. So they're a vital part of what the program is all about.
And as you mentioned, profitability, I presume the profitability is very much aligned to the amount of malt and barley that can ultimately be got over the weighbridge in Boortmalt. And I presume in behind that, lined up with that, is the amount of the total demand, if you like, for malt and barley has increased substantially. So trying to get more malt and barley into the system is ultimately going to be, I suppose, a goal from the Boortmalt side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. We would have seen that from profit monitor results, as you said, the more barley that we can get in as malt, that if it's sown as malt, that it gets to the maltings rather than the feed heap, the better profitability we can get from the crop and not get that dilution factor. Whereas, the price of that we're getting for maybe if half our barley has to go for feed, that we're dragging down the overall price that we're getting for our malting crop. And really, it's hitting the profitability.
So John is one of the monitor farms out there. You mentioned other farms that you have around the country. How do those farms fit into the programme?
Just on the monitor farms, I suppose, we aimed to pick the monitor farms in each of the main Boortmalt malt and barley areas. And that was really focused in the southeast of the country. So look, in total, we have 6 farms, and the location of these we have one just on the border between Laois and Kildare in Stradbally in County Laois. We have one just outside Carlow Town, one just outside Kilkenny, John, which is in Ferns, one in New Ross, and then our final one is down on the coast in Wexford, down on Featherdon-Sea. So really, as I was saying, the role of the monitor farm is primarily there to carry out best practice in relation to malt and barley production, and then to try and take this best practice and then disseminate to other growers in the area through our series of malt and barley crop walks, events, and workshops. And really, the aim of having specific monitor farms in each of the different areas was so that we could tackle issues that each farmer in the particular areas are facing. Rather than having maybe just one monitor farm in a central location and trying to, disseminate general information to a wide number of people. We really thought that by getting, local farmers in local area, we could really tackle the issues on a local level. And a step on then from monitor farms as well, they also carry out a series of crop demos for us. Things like maybe catch crop establishment. We did sort of ramillaria control options, the effective line that we did out on John's farm. And, these are kind of tackling areas that are topical with growers, and they can come and see them on monitor farms as part of our crop walks and events, which are really interesting for growers to see.
So tackling local problems and demonstrating it local to farmers makes it more relevant, I suppose, for practice change. I suppose maybe it's what you're saying behind absolutely. It. Eoin, if we just maybe turn back to John's farm for a second, as you have been working with John for a while now, and I'm sure you've identified areas which could be maybe tweaked or improved on John's farm over the last number of years. You might maybe give us an idea of one or two of those, which is helping John to deliver more in-spec barley.
From what we've seen is that all the monitor farms, they're throwing up different challenges in relation to achieving them quality crops of malt and barley. And what the main thing that I've seen on John's farm since I've been working on the farm, and John touched on it there, is the soil type that John is farming on. So, the soil on John's farm, it's a typical Clonroach series soil, which is found, throughout Wexford. But it's very free draining, and it makes it excellent for producing quality crops of spring malt and barley. But what we have seen is that pressing of this land and getting seedbed consolidation, is really vital for getting good establishment of your malt and barley crop or spring barley crop in general. So look, John, he touched on it there. John has run a plough press directly after the plough, then followed by a heavy ring press, and then drills then with a disc drill. So it's all about getting that seedbed consolidation on that type of soil. So we've actually looked at different demos on the farm where we've left areas maybe with only one pass of the press rather than two, and that's just to give an indication of where establishment would be if we were to cut out one of the passes with the press. And I think John would agree with me here. I think that you probably have an interest maybe of not wanting to go with one run of the press, because it does cost money every time you go across the land. But really what we've seen by leaving out that run with the press on the land, we were getting somewhere in an average of 50 plants per metre squared less compared where we had gone with two runs of a press. So it's a lot of plants, and really if we have that less plants, we're inevitably going to have less yield and a higher protein rate because of that lower dilution factor in the crop. So look, really what we've learned from John's farm is that it's vital to know your soil type on your farm and try and work your seedbed accordingly to that in order to try and both maximize yield potential and protein content of the grain for the crop.
Okay, John, do you want to comment on that? Because obviously there's that's 50 plants per metre square. That's quite significant, but it does come with a cost in terms of your own time and fuel and machinery to get those extra passes in.
Yeah, look, over the years we've tried different systems of using the ring roller type after ploughing. We've now found that the very heavy press is what gives the correct consolidation on the soil and what prepares the soil best for the sower. I know a lot of people would say light land, I should just go min-till non-aversion ploughing, but the plough-based system, for cost-wise alone and establishment, just at the moment we can't beat it. And look, I myself and I've chatted there many times about the possibility of looking into a trial maybe of doing min-till versus plough versus direct drilling, and how it would work on a predominantly spring cereal type farm like my own. But it's hard to beat the old system, the plough and the press. And I would be shallow ploughing 6 inches would generally be where I'd be. I wouldn't have the soil to plow much deep in that, to be honest. But it's the heavy press seems to be the winner.
And obviously, John, then there's obviously a fine line then between consolidation on one hand and compaction on the other hand. How are you managing that?
I think as one old-time farmer said one day, you could run a steamroller on my land. It's very difficult to compact my land. In the couple of wet winter sowings we've had recently, it would have shown up some aspects of it, but generally my land is so light. We done a soil structure analysis recently where it just shows the layers of soil on it, and a rock is so close to topsoil. You're talking between 4 to 8 inches of topsoil in the land, and then under that, then anything from 0 to 2 meters of subsoil. But it's a very free draining, very light land. Compaction generally doesn't rear its head.
Okay, well that's good in itself. It gives you plenty of scope to get your seedbed right, as Eoin was mentioning. John, yes. Maybe you might just turn back maybe to the Signpost Farms, which is kind of around sustainability, and a lot of it, I suppose, is around kind of the environment point of view. How, going into this, because obviously it's the start of your journey on this, how would you rate the sustainability on your farm?
I'm glad you said the environmental sustainability, as I've been saying from the start, the environmental and financial sustainability both need to be fairly heavily interlinked. But I think that's actually even coming true now with the new straw chopping scheme, which I did take advantage of there last year, which I found did work very well for me. I had lost some straw sales through customers putting in cubicles and that, and that over recent years, where I'm based in Wexford, which is generally the last place the lorries go for straw after harvest. But the straw chopping scheme definitely benefited this farm this year. Apart from that, then I do have 12 acres of planted land, trees, and there's also 3 acres of native woodland there, which definitely would be helping into the sustainability. I've a small field size as well, 6.9 acre average field size, which I suppose is quite unusual for a tillage farm, but it does mean I do have an awful lot of hedges on the farm as well. So overall, I'd say now I'm pretty good up a scale. Look, there's definitely improvements to be made, and even improvements that I'm surprised to hear I have to make, I suppose, and that's where the Signpost Programme is definitely leading the way for me anyway.
And thinking about that in terms of your hedges and woodland, have you done any assessments on those of late in terms of how you might manage those differently in the future?
Yeah, well, look, I suppose starting the hedges, Eoin actually recently worked out I have 12.1 kilometers of hedgerows on the farm.
Wow.
Most are good, but some need more work, and to find out what is the best style and shape of hedgerow and how I can improve my hedgerows from both a biodiversity point of view and a carbon sequestration type point of view. So there's improvements needed to happen there. The woodland, then my father would have actually sowed the 12 acres back in the late 80s, early 90s. So that's kind of coming to maturity now as well. It's never been tinned because it's a long, narrow strip. I've just kind of been tinning it myself for firewood, basically, for my mother's house and my house. And it's even I'm starting to wonder now, should it be clear felled at all? Like, is there an option there, maybe they're going forward, that I should keep it, not clear felled from the carbon point of view?
Yeah.
And even as just a nice asset to the farm to have this piece of land. Where it's sown, it was on land that was never tillable, and it was kind of more of a bog and type of land. But I would love to know, like, even from the department, even if there was something that they could do to give me some sort of incentive to not touch that area of trees, to leave them there to have, and from the carbon side of things, it would be great for everybody in the area as well. Like,
yeah, well, obviously it's a part of the program, and I think Eoin and Kieran, your advisor, will be trying to line up a few experts to come in and maybe do an assessment of that, because I certainly know there's a bit of work ongoing and maybe some good information there as regards the what do they call it? Is it mixed woodland, or I'm not exactly sure what the phrase is, but where you thin it out and you don't clear fell it, but you still can take some parts of it out of it. But
yes,
I think your point is very well made. I think in terms of trying to retain it if you can. Guys, the time is probably getting away from us a little bit, but Eoin, I just want to come back to you maybe finally, and you might just give listeners a view maybe on if they're going to come down to John's farm, because hopefully we will have open days in the coming months in John's farm. What's the big areas do you think that other farmers will find of interest on John's farm?
Yeah, look, I suppose from our initial type of assessment of the farm from the Signpost series, we know that John's farm with the soil type and the cropping type, there's a high level or risk of nitrate loss. So catch crops, they're going to be a huge part of the Signpost program going forward on John's farm. And I suppose to that, we have a demo in place on the farm where we're looking at different sowing dates of catch crops and how effective the catch crop is basically based on sowing date. So we have 3 sowing dates on the farm. We have sort of around the 20th of August sowing date, a 1st of September sowing date, and a 15th of September sowing date. And we're looking at the catch crops all through the autumn there, just to assess, the impact that sowing date has on the potential of the catch crop. But look, I suppose looking forward into the spring, John touched on it there that, he has an interest maybe in different establishment systems. And what we're hoping to do is put a demo in place on the farm where we look at 3 different establishment systems for spring malting barley, which would include ploughing, which John is currently doing, min-tilling, and then direct drilling, all into catch crop land, or where catch crops have been established on the land. Now, look, I suppose it is hard to look away from the plough on the particular, I suppose, cropping type and soil type that John has. The plough, it is the most financially, I suppose, stable system that John could use on the farm, because it produces good crops nearly every year on the land, and malt and barley is the most profitable crop that John can grow. But look, I suppose as part of the Signpost program and the Boortmalt Joint Programme, we hope that we can do an in-depth analysis of each of the systems and have a good demo and very visually type demo that farmers can come during the year at our various events, and sort of look at the progression of the crops under the various establishment systems. And we hope to track the progression of the crops as well, and look at both maybe the financial and environmental sustainability of each system on the farm.
I suppose, Eoin, I think it's great to hear that you're doing a little bit of that, Eoin and John, because obviously John has to be very much a part of that. But if you don't try it, you'll never know, and if you don't measure it, you'll never be able to change. So, I think it's very good to be able to do that. John and Eoin, I'm really delighted you could join me today. I hope maybe, John, you might be up first, maybe come back and revisit you again at some stage in 2022 to see how you're getting on. So, gentlemen, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Michael.
So that's it for the Tillage Edge, and my thanks to Eoin and John for joining me on the podcast. As I mentioned at the start, we'll be chatting to other farmers involved in the Signpost programme over the coming months, so look out for those episodes. Finally, don't forget, if you like the podcast, then recommend it to a friend or colleague, and as always, rate, review and subscribe at Apple Podcasts and Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for more information, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Michael Hennessy, thanks for listening, and I'll be back next week with more tillage news and advice.